Okay, so we've got our haphazardly put together piece here. All these parts are done. We have the whole sword selected. We know that when we select everything, it selects the whole sword. So one thing we could first do is just say mapping, and then, I'm sorry, say UV pack and pack UVs. You can also push the button, I think it's this one, and it puts it all in the scene. But the problem with the way doing it that way is this is still the biggest object. Remember, I have this select by element on. You need to remember to turn that on and off. So I don't really want to use that as my packing, my first packing, because we're going to do something with those blades in a minute. So I'm going to try that again and then just push this button and see how much more packed it is inside of here now. And we can see that I've got a denser, meaning the checkerboard is smaller inside of here too. So move this back over here. Now we get to put stuff together, or we could put the second half together because there's more to it, right? So let's do that. I'm going to leave it this way, and then we're going to collapse it down to an edible poly, just like that. So now we've got it unwrapped, half unwrapped, sort of unwrapped. We still have some issues with it, and then we're going to put on symmetry. And then I'm going to say Y flip, and there we go. So it's there. And then I can collapse it, or I can add a poly to it, or an edible poly to it, or I can collapse it to an edible poly, or I can just leave it the way it is and say UV unwrap, and now it's UV unwrapped. And if I open up the editor, what I'm going to see is it looks like exactly how it was, but that's deceiving. What's going on is there's two of everything on here. So if I turn this back on so it selects element as well as polygon, and I click, you'll see if I look at the backside, I'm not selecting the backside of this plane. Where is it? Well, it's right behind it. They're just stacked on top of each other. And that's an interesting thing. What happens when you do that is it is what's called tiling, and it's sharing the same UVs as the backside. So I'm going to show you a quick way to show you how that works real quick. I'm going to take this, and then I'm going to make a UV template of it real quick. Seam edges, no. 1024 is fine. Render UV template, and it's going to show me this picture. And I'm going to show you how to do this in a few minutes anyway. We don't do this as much anymore, but it's important that you understand how it works. We'll go up to new folder. Thursday. We're going to call this blade sim. I'm just going to say UBW. And then change it, and you want to save it as a TGA. Again, I'll talk to you about this in a minute. Save. Okay. Close it. Okay. So if I open up Photoshop now, and I open up that image, and it was Thursday. This is what we have, right? So the way we do stuff is we would come in here, make this coloring book, and then I'd come in here and say paste, and then I'd make a new layer below it, G, fill it. So basically I have an outline that's just something there, and then I'd make a layer below that. And just to show you how this works, because I've unwrapped both of the sides of the blades this way, if I come in here and I change my painting to something like red or something, and I say smiley face on this middle plane here, and let's say HELLO. Okay. And then I hide this wireframe because I don't really want to have the wireframe or the outlines while I'm using it as a texture, but this will show you. That just shows me where in the texture it is. Save. We're going to save this as the PSD. That's fine. Like that. Say OK. And then we're going to come back to Max. And I'm going to throw that texture you being a jerk. Okie dokie. And I'm going to throw this texture that we just made right on top of here. I'm going to turn off my wireframes here. Okay, so now first off, it's showing it over here, and we'll talk about why that is in a second. But that looks great, but if I turn it over, my hello is backwards and flipped. That's because it's not reverted on the other side. So just be aware that when you tile things and you don't flip them, or if you symmetry things and you don't flip them, it's inverting the texture on the back side. So if you have bumps in, it could be bumping out instead, things like that. So, or bumping in a different direction. So I'll show you what the other thing you want to look at here is if I open this up and I turn on, I'm going to close this and then reopen it. See if it'll show up now. I think I can just pick the texture. This one. You suck. Okay. So the way we always do this is we just say, okay, collapse it to an editable poly, put a UV back on it, and then open the editor, turn this off. And then if we come here, you can see now my texture showing up. It just likes to have it on there before the UVs are on. So it's on there, and let me turn that back on. So we can see that it's sitting there, but what it's really doing, everything outside of this box is repeating. So here's the texture, right? And here's everything outside of the box. Why is the texture showing up on the outside too and everywhere? Well, because anytime you have a texture, whatever's inside this box is going to repeat in every direction. So let me show you what I mean. When I click this button, it's going to show that texture everywhere it's being used. And look at that, it's being used over here. So some of the stuff is staying black, but a lot of the stuff has the words right on top of it. If I made it bigger, like this, you'd see even more of the words splattered across here. This is what's called tiling. We'll get into this a lot more later, but just realize anything outside of this box, this main box, UV1, U1, V1, is tiling the same texture over and over again. You can't tell it to use different textures, at least not the way we're ever going to use it. They do in movies, and I can talk about that at some point. But so that's what's going on, and that's why we see it that way. But let's get back to exactly how to fix the problem here. Now, I could just take this object and take this plane, turn on the planar one, take this one, and then, or even just take this one, and we'll take this one, move it over a little bit, take this one, and then even if I changed it, oh, that's funny. Let me grab the back one first. Okay, so I'm grabbing the back one, so I don't even have to move it. But what I have to do is tell it to not face this direction. It's inverted. So I have this button up here called mirror. If I mirror, I don't know why it says vertically. It's horizontal direction. So look at that. Now it's mirrored correctly. So it's on both sides. It says hello correctly. It's still using the same exact texture. It's just using the UVs correctly. Another way you can find out if things are mirrored when you look at the objects. If I move this out of the way, and then I grab this one, when I do a, let me use this tool version here, relax. When I use a relax tool on it, it doesn't do anything. When I use a relax tool on this one, oh, it did it so fast you couldn't even see it. It flipped it. A lot of times it'll do it really, it'll do this weird distortion thing. Let me see if I do it something else. I'm just not going to do it because at least you can see it on that one. Anyway, so you'll be able to tell the difference. And this blue line on the outside is where things are connected. So here's the other thing you want to look at. So when I take this over, and I move it over here, and I take these guys and I say tile or tool, pack UVs, and go. See how many pieces there are there? Now when I do it now, every piece is separate. So now I have both versions of the front and back set here. This one and this one. So both of them, they're separated out. Which makes me have more resolution or less resolution to work with for these. If you look at before, see how they were smaller? That means it's more resolution. And then if I say pack custom, it's going to pack everything I have selected into here. And now I have this, both sides of this going on. There are times when it's important to do it so they overlap, so you use less texture, and that's something that you have to decide when you start working on stuff. But a lot of cases you want to have something, if this is a hero object, for example, which means it's a key object, you want to have it not overlap. So let's talk about stitching this back together in the next one.